In areas of a football team you want to keep guarded with the safe space is the locker room. One place that is definitely in jeopardy of losing any security, anything being secret, is the Cleveland Browns locker room. Now, I am here to tell you, the locker room has been leaking information to Browns insiders for the last...
Don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. When a locker room speaks, you better believe something's gone very wrong. Because let me tell you this, NFL locker rooms are built on silence, on brotherhood, on protecting the shield no matter what storm is raging outside. That code, it doesn't break, it doesn't bend, not unless the people inside feel like they've got no other choice. And right now in Cleveland, that code is shattered. We're not talking about gossip. We're not talking about little whispers behind the scenes. We're talking about rebellion. Straight up rebellion from within the walls of the Browns locker room. A place that for decades players swore was untouchable. The stories leaking out, the insiders suddenly armed with details that only players could know. This isn't an accident. This is a movement. Think about what it means when teammates start putting their own careers at risk to defend a rookie quarterback. That's not drama. That's desperation. These players know the cameras are watching. They know the front office is watching. They know every word could be traced back and end their shot at a roster spot. And still they're speaking out. Why? Because they've seen enough. They're done watching Shedeur Sanders rot on the bench while the organization treats him like a threat instead of an investment. And if you've followed this league long enough, you know when players start leaking, it's because the trust between locker room and leadership has completely collapsed. We saw it with the Jets under Adam Gase. We saw it at its ugliest under Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, where the players themselves had to become whistleblowers just to survive the chaos. And now we're seeing it again in Cleveland. Different names, same dysfunction. The Browns aren't just losing games. They're losing the room. And once you lose the room, it doesn't matter what the playbook says. It doesn't matter what the depth chart says, because the bond of trust, the belief that the coaches have your back, is gone. And when that goes, you've got mutiny on your hands. And let's be real here, this isn't about third-string drama. This isn't about some backup quarterback getting salty over snaps. This is about something much bigger. This is about a group of professional athletes, veterans, leaders, guys with families and mortgages, and 10 years in the league, deciding that they would rather risk it all than sit quietly while one of their own gets sabotaged. That should shake every Browns fan to their core, because once that trust is broken, once that line is crossed, there is no going back. The cracks don't heal, they spread, they split wide open, and the Cleveland Browns are standing right on the edge of that cliff. So if you think this story is just about a kid in a baseball cap on the sideline, think again. This is about the sacred bond of the locker room being ripped apart from the inside. And the players? They've made their choice. They've spoken. They've chosen Shedeur over silence. And the question now is what comes next? Here's what doesn't add up. How in the world do you take a quarterback with first-round talent, a guy with the pedigree, the poise, the numbers to back it up, and then chain him to the third string like he's some camp arm lucky just to be here? It makes zero sense. None. Unless you start peeling back the layers of what's really happening in Cleveland. Look at the depth chart. On paper it says Shedeur is buried behind veterans, but that's a smokescreen. If the Browns truly believed he wasn't ready, if they truly thought he wasn't NFL material, they'd stash him on the practice squad tomorrow and call it a day. That's what teams do with late picks and long shots. But they can't. And you know why? Because the second they exposed Shedeur to waivers, another team would scoop him up in a heartbeat. That's the contradiction. That's the tell. They're terrified of losing him, which means they know exactly what they've got. And that's what makes this whole situation so maddening as a fan. You're telling me the front office sees his value. The players see his value. Even rival scouts around the league see his value. But the one group of people pretending not to? The Browns coaching staff. The very people paid to develop him. Instead of putting him in position to grow, they're holding him hostage on the active roster, keeping him locked up, watching dust collect on his talent, while they scout for his replacement. Think about how insulting that is to Browns Nation. This fan base has been starving for stability at quarterback for decades. Since Bernie Kosar, since Otto Graham, it's been nothing but heartbreak, false messiahs and jerseys with 20 names crossed out. And now finally, you've got a kid who looks the part, who carries himself like a franchise leader, who players are literally going to war for. And instead of building around him, you're treating him like radioactive waste? You can feel the frustration boiling over. And it's not just from fans on Twitter, it's from inside the building. Offensive linemen whispering about the snaps he doesn't get. Wide receivers frustrated they don't get a chance to build chemistry with him. Veterans shaking their heads, knowing what it means when a coaching staff plays politics instead of ball. It's not about competition anymore. It's about control. The Browns are more concerned with protecting their narrative than unleashing their future. And here's the truth. When you fear putting a guy on the field because he might make you look wrong for doubting him, you've already admitted he's the real deal. So here we are. Shedeur Sanders too valuable to lose, too dangerous to unleash, stuck in purgatory, while the city of Cleveland keeps waiting for a quarterback savior. And the players, they know who that savior is. They see it every day in practice. Which raises the only question that matters. How long before this locker room's belief in Shedeur collides head-on with the coach's obsession with control? Let's talk about the smear campaign. Because that's exactly what this is. A smear campaign, plain and simple. We're not just talking about keeping Shedeur off the field anymore. We're talking about tearing down his image, his personality, his leadership, piece by piece until the narrative matches what the organization wants you to believe. And the excuses they're using? They're pathetic. A backwards hat, sunglasses on the sideline, consoling his kicker after a missed field goal. Since when did any of that become a crime? Since when did kindness or swag or basic human compassion turn into evidence of immaturity? I'll tell you when. The second this organization decided they didn't want Shedeur Sanders to succeed. We've seen this playbook before. Cam Newton couldn't celebrate without being labeled arrogant. Lamar Jackson had his throwing motion picked apart like he was some high school prospect. Even Baker Mayfield, for all his flaws, got dragged for headbands and commercials before he ever got dragged for interceptions. The media doesn't just report, they weaponize. They take harmless quirks, normal human behavior, and spin it into a problem. And now Shedeur is their latest target. Think about how wild this is. A young quarterback consoles his teammate after a miss, something every coach in America preaches as leadership, and Cleveland media clowns twist it into, oh, he just wanted camera time. That's not analysis, that's character assassination. That's a hit job. And fans are supposed to buy that. Fans are supposed to believe a kid showing empathy is somehow bad for the team? Give me a break. The same voices criticizing him for sunglasses and hats had nothing to say when Joe Flacco did it. They had nothing to say when Jalen Hurts rocked the exact same look. But when Shedeur does it, suddenly it's a lack of focus. Suddenly it's proof that he's not serious. You see the hypocrisy. This isn't about fashion. It's not about optics. It's about control. Because here's the reality. If they can't bury him on the field, they'll bury him off it. If they can't justify why their most talented quarterback is stuck on the bench, they'll build a narrative to make you think he deserves it. That's the Browns' play. Control the story. Paint him as immature. Chip away at his reputation until the outside world stops asking the obvious question, why isn't he playing? And here's the part that should have every fan furious. It's working. It's dividing the fan base. Some Browns fans are actually debating whether Shedeur consoling a teammate was genuine or not. Debating whether sunglasses mean he's locked in. Are you kidding me? That tells you everything you need to know about the toxic culture being created here. This isn't about football anymore. This is about power, about saving face, about destroying a young man's credibility before he even gets the chance to prove himself. And that right there is what makes this whole thing disgusting. Because if they're willing to assassinate his character just to protect their pride, what else are they willing to do? Here's the truth nobody in Cleveland's front office wants to admit. Shedeur Sanders is the breakthrough just waiting to happen. You can lock him on the bench, you can bury him on the depth chart, you can even smear him in the media, but you cannot hide what he really is, a natural leader with the kind of poise you don't teach. We all saw it at Colorado. This kid didn't just play quarterback. He carried a program on his back under the brightest spotlight college football has seen in years. He stared down the pressure, the critics, the noise, and he delivered. Fourth quarters? Overtime games? When the lights were hottest, Shedeur was the calmest man in the stadium. That's clutch DNA. That's something you either have or you don't. And Shedeur's got it in spades. And don't think for a second his teammates in Cleveland don't notice. They see it every day in practice. They see the way he commands a huddle, the way he connects with guys, the way the ball comes out on time, sharp, confident. That's why the locker room is rebelling. This isn't some petty protest. They're not leaking info for fun. They're doing it because they've seen with their own eyes what the coaching staff refuses to acknowledge, that the most talented quarterback on this roster is the one being kept under wraps. We've seen this story before. Jalen Hurts came into the league with doubters circling like sharks. People said he wasn't accurate enough, not polished enough. Fast forward a couple years, and he's the centerpiece of a Super Bowl team. Brock Purdy? Mr. Irrelevant. Last pick in the draft. Everyone laughed, until he walked into San Francisco and started out playing first-rounders. Jordan Love? 3 years in the shadows. Fans questioned if he was even worth the pick. Now, he's running the show in Green Bay with confidence. The lesson is simple. Patience pays off, but only if you give a guy real development. Only if you trust him. Only if you let him grow. That's what makes this Cleveland situation so insane. They've got their own version of those success stories right here, right now. And instead of polishing the diamond, they're trying to bury it in the dirt. But here's what gives me hope. No amount of politics can erase talent. No smear campaign can erase leadership. No backwards hat or pair of sunglasses can erase what Shedeur shows when the ball is in his hands. Sooner or later, the breakthrough comes. The pressure builds. The frustration mounts. The players keep speaking out. And at some point, the dam breaks. And when it does, when Shedeur finally gets that shot, the whole league is going to see what his teammates already know. That Cleveland's been sitting on a star the entire time. The only question left is, will the Browns embrace that breakthrough, or will they watch another young quarterback shine somewhere else while they're left wondering what could have been? Here's where I stand. The Cleveland Browns are standing at a fork in the road, and they've only got two options left. Either unleash Shedeur Sanders and give him the chance he's earned, or lose him to a team that will. It's that simple. There's no middle ground anymore. Because every snap he doesn't take, every smear piece that hits the airwaves, every moment he's chained to that bench, it's not breaking him, it's fueling him. It's adding to the fire that's been burning in him since the moment he was doubted in the draft, since the moment people said fifth rounder like it was a curse instead of a steal. And that fire? That's the kind of fuel that makes a quarterback unstoppable once he finally gets unleashed. And I'll say it again for the people in the back. You can delay him, you can sideline him, you can bury him under depth charts and media spin, but you cannot stop him. You cannot erase the talent. You cannot erase the leadership. You cannot erase the belief of a locker room that's already chosen their guy. What's happening in Cleveland isn't just about one rookie quarterback. It's about fairness. It's about respect. It's about a franchise that's been begging for a leader, begging for a star, and somehow can't see that he's been sitting in their building all along. And the longer they deny it, the louder this story gets. The more the locker room leaks, the more fans turn, the more the league watches, waiting for the inevitable. Because make no mistake, Shedeur Sanders is going to rise. He's going to take every slight, every jab, every wasted opportunity, and turn it into fuel for the biggest breakout this league has seen in years. And when that moment comes, when he finally gets his shot, whether it's in Cleveland or somewhere else, everyone will remember this stretch. Everyone will remember how they tried to cage a star and failed. So here's my prediction. This storm doesn't calm down. It builds. It gets uglier. It forces Cleveland's hand. And when the dust settles, Shedeur Sanders will be the one standing. Because you cannot bury the truth forever. You cannot silence a locker room forever. And you sure as hell cannot stop a quarterback who was born for the moment. Cleveland can play their games. They can cling to control. But the future, it's already written. Shedeur Sanders will have his moment. And when he does, it's going to be undeniable.